Okay, well, here we are, Monday evening, and as we are getting ready to kick this off, boom goes the dynamite. Massive college football news drops. Y'all already know what we're going to start off with this evening. Before we do, as always, PG, thank you for joining me this evening. Let everybody know where they can find all your great content.
Yeah, y'all can find all of my content at YouTube. I wouldn't say it's great because I made a whole video on Sammy Brown and how it's going to impact Georgia and OU for him to commit 5 minutes later. It's like he watched my video or something.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that
Oh
quick
yeah, no, I
succession.
literally made a video 5 minutes. I literally uploaded it not even 5 minutes ago before I got on here.
Jeez, that's rough. Well, I'll let you take the floor then, man. Talk to us about Sammy Brown. How surprised are you? Where were you with all this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not shocked to see him end up at Clemson. I wanted him in an Oklahoma uniform just because I thought, okay, Venables was recruiting him at Clemson, so there was a relationship there. I thought Oklahoma had a good shot. You heard some confidence on both sides that Oklahoma was in a really good position. So I think there was like some false expectations in me that they kind of thought, okay, Oklahoma's in the driver's seat if we can get a visit. And I know everybody, all the Georgia fans will have said, oh, Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. And I'm like, I just never saw it. There were too many connections that I thought led him to Clemson over Georgia. But I honestly, the video I made, I said this impacts Oklahoma getting a specific defensive lineman more than people realize. And that's only because Georgia's now going to focus all of their attention to going and getting Justin Williams, who right now a lot of people believe will end up at Oregon. So if Georgia lands Justin Williams, who, by the way, is from Conroe, Texas at Oak Ridge High School, that would lead me to believe, after Joseph Jonah Ajonye said that one of his best visits was to Georgia, Georgia was a dream school for him, that if his buddy ends up there, there's a good chance maybe he swings him there as well. That's a top 50 defensive lineman in the country, one that potentially could be a 5-star by it's all said and done. And that would be a big loss because Oklahoma feels like they're in a good position for him now. So I definitely think Sammy Brown sways a lot more than what Oklahoma fans could be realizing. We could be losing two guys with the Sammy Brown commitment rather than just Sammy Brown. So we'll have to kind of see how things go and if Georgia can really heat up with Justin Williams.
And it's interesting because Clemson, we talked in the green room as well. They get a crystal ball for Bryant Wesco as well. You said you're still pretty adamant that you think OU is in the driver's seat there. And look, we know OU has put in great work with Bryant Wesco as well, but they're coming off of a big weekend in terms of recruiting. And we know how Clemson does things in terms of recruiting. We know how powerful their pitches are. And it's actually wild to think about this, man, because I do want to break into the impact of Sammy Brown, but it is wild what Dabo has been able to do on the recruiting trail. You lose Brent Venables, you lose Todd Bates. And I think people were asking some questions, not to say people were questioning, can Dabo continue doing this at a high level? We know Dabo is an elite coach, but what would the immediate impact be? And Clemson has still recruited very well. This is a huge addition. That linebacker position for that Clemson defense, massive. Man, and this is a guy who 5-star has a sub 11 second 100-meter dash at 6'3", 225 plus pounds. This is a freak athlete, guys. Like, we've been treated over the past 10 or so years to some linebacker prospects that have been utter freaks coming out of high school. Sammy Brown is one of them. And what do we talk about all the time, PG? The snowball effect. Do you think that Sammy Brown is a snowball effect type player first and foremost for Clemson?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then we can talk about the larger impact that you've already hit on.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. Because if you look at the massive, which I should have did a video on it. I didn't do it. Did one on Florida, not Clemson. But Clemson got not only Sammy Brown on campus this weekend, but they got KJ Bolden, the top 10 player, number 1 safety in this class. Mike Matthews, the top 10 player, number 3 wide receiver in this class. Edric Houston, Bryant Wesco. Like, they had a massive gathering of players in this class at this event. And a lot of these guys, Mike Matthews, KJ Bolden, we have all thought, hey, Clemson might be in the driver's seat. Mike Matthews maybe a little bit more than KJ Bolden, but I've kind of been on the same train saying KJ Bolden's going to be at Clemson, Edric Houston will be at Georgia, right? That's kind of how I thought those two would split. I didn't think that either of those two would probably go play at the same school, just because I think KJ Bolden looks at Clemson, Alabama a little differently than he does Georgia. And I think Edric Houston really likes Georgia and Alabama. So I definitely think there's going to be a snowball effect, because now all of a sudden you've lost Brent Venables, but yet there's still this allure that Clemson can land top tier defensive linemen whenever they want to. Because last cycle they got 5-star defensive linemen, guys that Alabama wanted. So I think this could be a snowball effect. I think you could see a Mike Matthews shut it down pretty early, and then maybe even a KJ Bolden.
Man, I am super interested to see, first and foremost, you hit the Clemson snowball effect perfectly, but you also talked about Georgia, right? Georgia now is in a position where they're losing out on Sammy Brown. You reference the Justin Williams situation, high school teammate of Joseph Ajonye. What do you think the situation is there? Do you think Georgia could come in there and really spoil the party for Sooners?
Man, I really do, because, Joseph Ajonye's already been out there and he loved it. He talked that visit up a lot, and he even said it when he got the offer. It was a dream offer for him, dream school. And I don't see a world where Kirby Smart goes over 2 on one of the top 2 linebackers in this class. I think they're going to go all in on Justin Williams. And Justin Williams, by the way, hasn't really taken a whole lot of visits. He was really focusing on his school and getting through the school year. Now it's going to start ramping up for him. And he already has an official visit set to Georgia. And I think that's his only official visit. And it's currently set for the 23rd of June. Now, the only thing to make note is he's been to Oregon 4 times. That's where Steve Wiltfong currently has him crystal balled. But we've seen how things can change. And if Georgia's throwing out any kind of money at all, which, for these 5-star guys, I don't think plays a huge factor unless you're going to like an A&M or an Oregon or a place that's going to be dropping massive bags. But yeah, no, I definitely think Justin Williams has a good shot at being a Bulldog. And if he's a Bulldog, I think it takes JJ away from the Oklahoma Sooners.
And that's, we talk about must land prospects, right? The linebacker position is going to be one that I think a lot of Sooner fans watch with Brent Venables, but I think that's just the nature of the position in which he coaches. He's a defensive guy, specifically that linebacker. So that's always going to be a point of talking, a point of contention. But if you get into a situation where, okay, well, now because of this, the ripple effect is we lost Sammy Brown. Now we have a possibility of losing a defensive lineman. That's going to be interesting to watch going forward. Now, I know one of the things for Oklahoma is there's a lot of defensive linemen thereafter this year, which I do think is a good thing, right? I think look, they need to be after as many defensive linemen as you can, because that's just the nature of the game, right? Everybody's, you need them, go out and get them. You have great recruiters to do so. But I also think that's why we see Brent Venables as active in the transfer portal as we see him. I'm trying to figure out right now where Clemson ranks with the Sammy Brown commitment.
Did you pull up the class calculator?
Yes, but the thing is he's not added in to the actual list of players right now. And when I type in his name for add new recruits, it says duplicate prospect. So the
site hasn't updated yet.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I just added it. So it did 168.16. So that would put him at team rankings 168.16.
That jumped them ahead of Iowa. So Clemson is now 17th in recruiting, 9 prospects. I think they are one of 3 teams now, one of 4 teams with less than 10 commitments in the top 20. So that's a great place for Clemson to be. And look, this is a guy, I've said it a lot, that moves the needle. This is a dude that other guys will jump at the opportunity to play with. And when we look at what Clemson already has in their class, you have to feel good if you're a Tigers fan going into the summer. And the way Clemson and Oklahoma recruit, especially with Brent Venables, it's so similar because that's what he knows, right? I mean, this is a big win for the Tigers.
A big win because I think people are overlooking the just Sammy Brown committed to Clemson, and Sammy Brown committed to Clemson, and he didn't even make it to Georgia. Like, I just want everybody to sit on that for a second. He didn't even make it to Georgia for his official visit. So Dabo had a convincing enough pitch to make him not go to Georgia. That's impressive.
Now, he's visited there before in terms of like unofficials, but that's a good point.
Like 10 times. He's
Yeah,
visited. 10 times.
That's a good point. And you were wanting to see if Oklahoma could get him on campus based on how Clemson, Dabo Sweeney do their visits. That doesn't look like that's going to be in the cards anymore. But wow, I mean, so we look at the linebackers this class, right? I referenced that earlier. In the top 50 prospects in the nation, you have 5 linebackers, 2 of which are committed to Florida. Miles Graham, Adarius Hayes, one of which is committed to Georgia, DeMarcus Riddick. Here's the thing, though. He's from Alabama. So, PG, you talk about the ripple effect. Right now, the other day on the Bama Standard, we were talking about the must-land prospects for the Crimson Tide. And in the class of 2024, I gave them 2, one of which is already committed to the Crimson Tide, and that's Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin is a dude that, in theory, right, a 5-star quarterback, can provide a little bit of stability to that Alabama quarterback room. Tommy Rees liked him when Tommy Rees was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, extended the offer there. So I love that he had that vision of a future with a quarterback like Julian Sayin. But the other guy is DeMarcus Riddick, who's currently committed to Georgia, trying to flip him. That is a big thing to watch for Alabama. And so it's so interesting you point out the ripple effect because of Sammy Brown committing to Georgia, because of Sammy Brown leaving Georgia for Clemson, Georgia's going to double down on DeMarcus Riddick. Georgia's going to double down on a Justin Williams. And I wouldn't be surprised if they double down on a Miles Graham, who's from Atlanta, Georgia, committed to Florida. So this is going to be really interesting to watch going forward. But it's interesting. You have said you don't think that as many of the Georgia players that are in the state of Georgia will end up at Georgia. Do you still feel that way?
I still feel that way. And I think Sammy Brown's a perfect example. One, by the way, I don't know if people know this. Sammy Brown has been attending camps in Death Valley since he was in elementary school.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Yeah, so I definitely, that's kind of why I was, like, if he's going to end up anywhere but Oklahoma, it's going to be Georgia. Or, I mean, not Georgia, Clemson. But Georgia, I don't know what it is. But when I talk to recruits, I don't get the sense that Georgia is this all great place. Like, when I talk to recruits, they talk about Alabama as like this incredible place to go, how they can't wait to go see Nick Saban, how it's just an incredible atmosphere when they do go. When you talk to the kids that go to Georgia, they're not saying the same things. It's just like, oh yeah, they won 2 natties and they're positioning themselves to win a 3rd. I'm like, so wait, what about the visit? Like, it's not an attractive. It's almost like it's not an attractive destination, which is weird to think that the Georgia Bulldogs, who have won 2 straight national championships, would not be an attractive destination.
Yeah, and the way they finish recruiting would say otherwise. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I mean, Ellis Robinson. I still believe Ellis Robinson will not be a Georgia Bulldog by the end of this class.
Really? See, okay.
Deion Sanders at Colorado, but what I've said is like a guy with Ellis Robinson, he's going to commit to Georgia and get his spot secured. And then, if Deion Sanders has a great year at Colorado, shows that he has been able to develop Travis Hunter and Cormani McClain, then yeah, he might flip at that point.
The only pushback I'll give you there, because look, far be it from me to say Prime can't land the number 1 defensive back in the nation, right?
He's done it 2 years in a row.
He's done it 2 years in a row. So that's certainly not going to be my starting point of argumentation. The only thing I will say, though, because all of your points are well received, Georgia recruits a little bit different, almost like Alabama, where you can come in there and get your spot, but at the same time, if they want you, they'll find a way. Right. They'll pull a gray shirt. They'll find a way to get that guy on campus. So while I'm not saying that it all makes sense logically, I do think Georgia is one of those places where I don't know if people worry. When I say people, I don't know if your 5-star prospects or your top 200, 300 guys are really worried about holding their spot at Georgia, because I think a lot of those guys feel like, well, if they want me, there will be a spot for me regardless.
Yeah. And
Which
to preface this, I'm not talking to a bunch of 5-star prospects. The only 5-star prospects I've ever talked to is Justin Williams, Elijah Rushing. Those are the only guys. So I don't know how the 5-star guys feel about Georgia. But for those middle tier guys, it just doesn't seem like Georgia is the destination for them, which is intriguing. But I mean, like Mike Matthews, a guy out of Lilburn, Georgia. Where has everybody said that he's going to go? Tennessee or Clemson? Those have been the two destinations that everybody looks at and says that's where that kid's going to land. Sammy Brown, all
hurts my heart that Alabama isn't one of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're in there, but
yeah, I want.
You don't feel like they're on the top list, and then you got Sammy Brown. It's just like, I see the crystal balls for KJ Bolden to Georgia, and I see and I see Edric Houston because he's a Buford teammate as well. But he's talked about the visits to Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson and Oklahoma more than the visits to Georgia. And it's just like, I don't hear a lot of these guys talk about the Georgia visits as much. Like, you even have Florida State, a team that hasn't done much over the past couple of years, coming into your state, taking a 5-star tight end who Georgia has been developing at a really high level.
Tight end
yeah.
Right now.
You got they came in and took a former 5-star running back, Cameron Davis. He's now a 4-star guy, but he was a 5-star. Miles Graham. They've got he's at Florida. Like, I just look at some of these top guys, Aaron Nolan, they're all going other places not named Georgia. And at some point that's got to be concerning for a Georgia fan.
Look, well received, because and we've talked about this in the green room, and I've told you, I think they'll be fine. But when you point all these things out, not one thing you're saying is wrong. And to even piggyback off of this, the Buford battles are going to be great. KJ Bolden, that's going to be a phenomenal battle to watch. Georgia looks like they're a phenomenal position. They certainly have the crystal ball. But to your point, Buford and Alabama have had a really, really strong connection in terms of that being a pipeline to the Crimson Tide. And like you said, Edric Houston has a deep relationship with the Crimson Tide. That's a battle that I'd like Alabama to win, because that dude is very, very gifted. We even look at a guy like Caleb Odom in the state of Georgia. You talk about Landon Thomas, the 5-star tight end, who was a part of that Georgia class, decommitted, and then ended up in the Florida State class, which, by the way, here soon, we're going to have to find a Florida State content creator to get them on here, because I'm super interested in Florida State. I'd just love to hear them talk for about 35 minutes on their expectations. I think that'd be a ton of fun. But there's another tight end in the state of Georgia who's a top 100 prospect in the nation, regardless of position, Caleb Odom. He just got a crystal ball to Alabama. And if you look, there are two crystal ball predictions. One is from Wilt Fong to Alabama. The other one is to Ole Miss. So that's not to say Georgia won't win this battle or can't win this battle. I'll never say Georgia can't win a battle. It's just right now there's an interesting trend of places being able to go into the state of Georgia and get some wins. And that's something that I'm super interested to watch going forward, how it continues to stack. But let's transition a little bit. Let's stay in the SEC, because I briefly want to talk about the Crimson Tide, who this weekend get an offensive line commitment in the class of 2024, 3-star offensive guard, Joseph Ionata. Now, we have this conversation, PG, all the time. You see the 3-star rankings. People will tend to overlook the 3-star prospects, but as always, you and I will always do, we tend to try and go look, okay, well, what do they bring to the table? If you go look at Joseph Ionata, he's an athletic dude. He played on both the offensive line and the defensive line for his school. And I think some colleges were actually, I don't know if he'd been offered on both sides, but I know that he was at least being looked at by some smaller schools. The thing that I liked with him is he's got live feet. He's got athletic feet. And at a guard position, that's something I really like, especially with Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator. We know how run heavy he can be. You might have some situations where you're pulling your guards, getting those guards that are athletic. You love to see it. And I certainly don't think that'll be the end of what Alabama does on the offensive line in terms of recruiting. Coach Wolford had a huge year last year for the Crimson Tide, including flipping Caden Proctor, which was a must get for Alabama. I certainly think they'll be able to get some guys this year, but was interesting to see. But this isn't the only recruiting news in the state of Alabama, around Alabama, we have to talk about today, PG. Because though it's far out, The Texas Longhorns got a big win for the class of 2025 in quarterback KJ Lacey from the state of Alabama. 4-star prospect, top 100 player in the nation, top 10 quarterback, very gifted player. If you actually go watch his film, super live arm, I talked about this today, really wiry in his motion. What I mean is he's a tough one to hone in on. You think you have him, he just squirts out the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, pops it out. And Sark had high praise. I don't know if you saw. This is an interesting situation because Alabama has offered some other quarterbacks in the class of 2025. But the reason why I'm so interested in this, PG, is who his teammate is, Ryan Williams. And this is a guy I've talked to you a lot about off camera. This is a guy who I've said, man, if he would reclassify, I would be over the moon. He is a must-land prospect for Alabama in the class of 2025. As a sophomore in high school, he already has multiple sub-11-second 100-meter dashes. Like, I'm talking 10.49s as a sophomore in high school. This dude's got it. We were talking the other day, PG, about Jeremiah Smith, and I was reading today the scouts and these analysts talking about Ryan Williams, and they say he's in the same tier as Jeremiah Smith. Like, they are that gifted. We know Texas has been able to recruit the wide receiver position well. Now they have an in with Ryan Williams, quarterback at the high school level. This is something I'm going to be watching closely because this is a big target for Alabama. What was your thoughts when you saw KJ Lacey to Texas?
I mean, it's big because now Texas has a quarterback in 2025 to help them get that class going. I think Lacey, didn't he even say something along the lines of Texas was a school that he's always wanted to play at or something like that?
I'm not sure if I haven't seen much about that. I just know that,
I feel like I saw something somewhere, but I mean, it's big because they don't just get a guy in their state. They get a guy in the state, a couple states down the road, and he's a top 100 player according to the composite. I mean, it's a guy that when you look at his stats, he's a straight baller. He was getting offers from everybody. And you look at his top 9, it included nothing but elite schools. It's a big grab because you don't know what you're going to get in Arch Manning. So it's like Quinn Ewers is going to move on. You don't know if you're going to be able to retain Malik Murphy at that point, because I have no doubt in my mind Malik Murphy will transfer if he doesn't get a chance to be a starter, because he just has that kind of talent. So it's like, okay, you go and get you a younger guy. So if maybe Arch doesn't pan out, you maybe have another top tier talent sitting behind him to maybe take the reins. So that's big for Texas because so many people you heard say Arch could be a 3-star if he didn't have the last name Manning. So,
which I don't necessarily, I don't agree with that assessment. Right. And I've pushed back by that. I think personally, and I've said this, I think it's going to go Quinn to Malik to Arch. I think that's going to be the progression of Texas quarterbacks. And I don't think that that's anything downing Arch. I just think Malik showed us this spring game. Hey, I'm that dude, the guy you thought I was out of high school. Everybody knew. Like, if we go back and really hone in on Malik coming out, everybody knew what his ceiling was. It was just, hey, really unfortunate timing with the pandemic and everything, because this was a quarterback that was making leaps and bounds in his development from year to year to year. And then he had to sit and wait and then play, and he continued evolving. But man, coming out of the spring, and you've talked extensively about him, Malik Murphy, and how you thought he was the quarterback to watch there. And coming out of that spring game, you were absolutely right. But that's a big reason why I think he's probably the guy that gets the reins after.
He has
Quinn
such
Ewers.
a smooth throwing motion.
Oh.
Like look at his ball. It's so smooth. But I think he could take the starting job from Quinn this year if Quinn has a kind of the year he had last year. Like, you could see Texas fans trying to start call for somebody else. But I mean, you're right. Like, it could take Arch a couple of years, because what we saw from Arch in the spring, he needs a lot of work.
Well, I don't hold any. I'll give this right here. Jackson Arnold's first few drives in the Oklahoma, aside from the run, which that right there was, he's an incredibly athletic quarterback, and I don't think enough people really talk about Jackson Arnold's athleticism. Had Jackson Arnold gone out there and struggled, it wouldn't have really made much of a difference to me, because I'd have been like, yeah, you should be in biology right now. Like you should be getting ready for prom, and you're out here riding with some dogs, like some dudes. I don't put too much stock into that, but I do think Malik, my goodness, we've seen the development. Frightening points it out right here. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. Malik was really raw. Quinn helped him rework his throwing motion. Everybody knew his ceiling. It was just about the development and him getting there. He's there, but that's a big reason why I think that he will step in. I think your progression, in theory, would go Quinn to Malik to Arch to KJ, should he still be in that 25 class. I don't say that to say I think he'll flip. It's just he's in 2025. There's people are going to be pushing for that kid. Y'all turn
Well,
on the film. People are going to be pushing for him.
but the other argument though is kind of like what Dylan Raiola said. You don't need 3 or 4 years to prove yourself at a quarterback. If you get yourself in the right system, all you need is 1 year. So 2 years as a quarterback, especially if you're a top quarterback, should be plenty enough time to go out there and show yourself and be proving yourself to go be a top tier quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, look, and we've also seen this in college football, right? We've seen quarterbacks that will have tremendous upside, tremendous ceilings, but we can still say, okay, well, you're still very much, well, maybe I don't want to say a project quarterback, because I don't think that would be what Malik Murphy is. The point I'm trying to make in reference to Malik Murphy is we have seen quarterbacks off of 1 year of work be able to go and have a good placement in the NFL draft, because the scouts will look at them and say, hey, look how much they developed. Look how much is still in their ceiling. We can take him, and he's still got a lot of game left. That's why I said project is a really strong word, and I definitely don't think that needs to be attributed to Malik Murphy, but for lack of a better word, you get the point I'm making. A very athletic quarterback, very, very high ceiling. 1 year of work, they can go and find themselves in a really good spot in the NFL draft, which I think opens things up for Texas. But I'm going to tell you this right here, man. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch going forward. What this means for Ryan Williams, what this means for everything going forward, right? And we can ask, what does this mean for Alabama's quarterback situation? And I lightly touched this earlier. Cam, thank you for the $10, saying hi, Ty. Thank you for joining in to the stream this evening. Always good to see you, my man. One of the things I talked about earlier, PG, when I made the video talking about, yeah, cool. You get what I mean, Truth? Like project feels like such a strong word, but I don't know a better word for it, because he's not. He's certainly not. It's just the point being of a quarterback that has so much upside still off of 1 year of work. When they put together a great year, the NFL and these NFL execs will look at him and say, yeah, no, take the chance on him, because he's done good and he still has a lot of growth left. Malik is an interesting quarterback. The one thing I wanted to say, though, talking about this, is he just needs a little more cooking. Yeah, no doubt about it. Whenever I did the video earlier today on KJ Lacey, I kind of did a what does this mean for Alabama segment. And, you've heard people talk about what this means for Alabama. Alabama had offered KJ Lacey. They wanted him to come in camp this summer to kind of gauge where that. We've talked about Alabama wanting their prospects to camp, but make no mistake, the offer was there. They like his game. He's not a top 100 prospect in the nation for no reason, right? Like, that didn't just happen. The dude this past year, I forget the numbers, PG, but he has like crazy numbers and only 5 interceptions. So he's not turnover prone while being able to escape the pocket and keep his eyes downfield, which we've talked at length. I love that. For Alabama, though, I was like, well, here's the flip. Here's the good news. Here's the bad news. The bad news is you were probably going to pursue a quarterback in 2025 anyways, and it's still very early. But, like, he was in your state. Ryan Williams is his teammate. You would have loved to have had that connection, but they are after Underwood, the number one quarterback in 2025. They're going to try and push for him. The good news for Alabama, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Truth. 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 64% completion percentage for 3,000 yards. Really athletic kid, can move. But like I said, will choose to stay in the pocket a little bit more and do his work from there. And if not in the pocket, he will break and stay behind the line of scrimmage and do his work for there. Personally, I love that in a quarterback. Obviously, there's a time and a place to run. If the opportunity is there, take it. You're an athletic kid. But at the same time, you got a live arm. And all it takes is one defender to get a little greedy, come off their man, and what could have been a 5-yard run, where now the quarterback's going to take contact, is a 15-yard pass play, automatic first down, and my quarterback doesn't get hit. Yeah, I like that second option a lot. For Alabama, the one good news here, and then we'll move on to the next topic. They have Julian Sayin in the class of 2024. He is must land. I've said it. I will continue to say it. That does soften this blow because, well, you have a 5-star. So this is something we have to watch. I do want to hit a little bit of comments. Taking away the one that is committed to Alabama, what is the one project quarterback that you think has the highest potential that is not committed? Oh, that is committed to another school. Project quarterback with the highest potential. That's an interesting question, Anthony.
In the 2024 class or just any class?
Yeah, what class, Anthony? Because that's a very interesting question. I like.
I'll say this: I got to see Kevin Sperry over the weekend in 2025, and I know it's a little biased, but
I told
man,
you.
He looks good. And so does his brother in 2027.
What did I tell you whenever? And hey, in fairness, everybody here, I said this before he had committed anywhere. I watched him a while ago when he was a freshman, and man, we were at the Rival 7-on-7 event. This is the event where I was saying Jonte Cook was just out of his mind routing people up. Like, he would tell the opposing defender what route he would run and still just route him up. Boom. I mean, it was a lot of fun to be there, but Sharp Sports was there and he and I were standing there and we would constantly turn around and we were like, who is this young quarterback back here dropping dimes? And all day long, Kevin Sperry was out there balling. And we knew kid's got a real live arm. He's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, but if we're talking 2024, I think the easiest answer is probably Dylan Raiola because.
But I think I'm going to take a little bit different approach, right? So I'll tell you a quarterback I really like in the top 300. I'm a little biased here. I've gotten to talk to him. Good kid, but I really like his game. He's committed to Purdue. Marcos Davila, Midland legacy, Midland, Texas. Kid's a gamer. The kid loves football. I really like his game. I don't know that I would put him up there for like the biggest swing relative to ranking, upside, all of that. That is a 3-star quarterback. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, then that rules out Davila, and that was part of the reason why I was hesitating, because I think Davila is adequately a top 300 prospect, so on and so forth. Let's take a look at these 3 stars. Yeah.
I mean, Michael Hawkins has a lot of upside. I mean, and that's one that, a lot of insiders scratch their heads and go, why is he ranked so low? Because, I mean, when you see him, he's got every intangible to be a high 4-star quarterback.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't dove super deep into the massive spread of quarterbacks, but I do know the kid, Trey Owens, Black says Trey Owens, big arm. I do know the kid going to Oregon that they just picked up from Arizona.
Oh, Van Buren?
No, Luke. Really Luke Moga. Luke. 6'2", 190. He's a baller. He's a dude. Number 538 in the nation. He's very gifted. Very gifted. Yeah, well, truth. That was, yeah.
He isn't a project, though. Okay, what about Nico then? Because I think Nico, for the Tennessee class, even though he's a 5-star, he still has so much work and so much upside that.
But I think that's a little bit different, right? Like, Dylan Raiola is someone who, like, the reason Raiola is so sought after is almost the same reason like Jackson Arnold, something we talked about, where Jackson Arnold is a quarterback, Dante Moore, another one. High floor and a good high ceiling, right? Like, you have this wide range with Jackson Arnold, and he's got the mobility, which is why I grouped him in with the other quarterbacks. Dylan Raiola is kind of the same. He's got a very high ceiling. He's got a very high floor. I'm still interested in seeing Arch's ceiling, but the thing we know with Arch is he has a high floor. He understands the game of football. He can break it down at a really high level. like I said, he's just young right now. So I don't hold anything in the spring game against any of the quarterbacks anywhere. If you should have been in high school and you played in a spring game, yeah, you get a thumbs up from me for even going out there and suiting up with some dogs. Like you're a dude. I'm excited to see you grow. Rayola's kind of that though. High floor, high ceiling, really interesting prospect. Nico was so interesting because his ceiling was ridiculous. And I think it still is. I've talked to you time and time again. My favorite quarterback in last year's class was Nico, because he was one of those dudes, PG, where you watched his film, and every year there's a few of them, and you can't just help but like sit back and smile if you love football, and you're like, man, this dude is just fun to watch. I kind of had the same feeling with KJ Lacey today. Is he committed to Texas? You watch his film, and you're just like, if you love football, you're like, man, this is fun. It's just fun watching him throw the ball, throw the football, play the game of football. Someone earlier said the different arm angles he brings to the table. No doubt about it.
I wonder where this. I wonder if this was a kid. I don't know. Somebody correct me, but was this kid in Norman this weekend? Because I'm not gonna lie, there were like 30 quarterbacks there. I didn't know who half of them were. So, but there were a lot of quarterbacks there in Norman this weekend that were. Hey, they look pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we first need to talk about that this before we go any further as well. But Maddox is another one who I was looking at. Truth, that was going to be one, and then I ended up going with Luke Moga. But Maddox, I think that's a good one. He's good. Like you said, he needs some work, but he's an interesting prospect. There's always interesting 3-star prospects. Like right now, North Carolina State, right? They've got a kid, Cedric Bailey. Guys, he's 6'6.5", 185. Quarterback from Florida. That's a massive human being, right? Like already, my interest is peaked. Already, I'm just like, okay, what are you about at 6'6.5"? My goodness gracious! How about quarterback out of Gray, Georgia, Judd Anderson? I can't say I know a whole lot about his game, Anthony, but I'm also a little bit behind right now with wedding prep and everything, and I'm all over the place right now, man.
I'm right there with you.
All over the place. It's as much as I can do to keep my head above water for college football news. So look, I think we need to move on to OU getting some portal moves, and then we're going to close with USC. But PG, I want to give you the floor here because you were at the camp this weekend for OU. So I want you to talk about that, but then talk to us about the newest additions, right? Because we didn't get to talk about the Tennessee defensive line addition the last time we spoke. And we certainly didn't get to talk about the Utah State defensive line addition since we last spoke. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, Dejon Terry, I think it was a really good pickup. And then Paye was actually on campus working with the recruits, or I guess not recruits. It's not what they were called. The campers this week, which was interesting because he hadn't actually committed to, publicly committed to Oklahoma yet. So, but actually Terry was there as well on Saturday. So you got to see both of them. They're both massive human beings. I'll say this. I also got to see Isaiah Coe. He was walking back from the weight room. He looks big as well. So between those three, I think Oklahoma is going to be fine on the interior. I'll be curious to see what Stripling and Gilliam and some of those other guys look like. But in terms of the visitor list for Oklahoma, and they've also got some guys coming out on the 8th and the 13th. There's already guys starting to line up their visits coming out there. But they had a lot of just really athletic kids at the wide receiver and running back position there, which I thought was interesting because the wide receiver position, I think, is just a big area of unknown for this staff outside of this season because it's going to be really young. And then the running back position, it's like we're so deep there, but they had a ton of running backs there from IMG Academy and other places. But I got a chance to see Kevin Spurrier for the first time. That was awesome. He definitely has a good throwing motion, but his younger brother, I think, could be better than him. And I think he has a lot of work to put in to get there. But he's 2027 and, he's already working out with Lubby. Like, I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize recruits that are already committed somewhere could come to camps like this and pretty much be trained by the coach. Like Jeff Lebby was spending a lot of one-on-one time with Kevin Sperry and, trying to harness those mechanics a little bit and fine tune those. But you got to see a lot of wide receiver prospects. Adrian Wilson in 2025, who actually has been picking up a lot of crystal balls and feature cast to Oklahoma. You have Elijah Thomas from Shakota, who has offers from Bama, Texas A&M, and a couple other schools. And then Jaden Nickens from Millwood. And the interesting thing there is
this is awkward.
Two of those guys are from Oklahoma. Where does Clemson is leading over UGA for Sammy Brown, but sources are he. Someone's got to break the news to this guy.
He committed to Clemson. That battle's done.
It's over.
Yeah. He committed to Clemson like 40 minutes ago because it was right when we were about to go live. So how long?
Literally.
40 minutes. Yeah, we committed to 40 minutes ago. Yeah, and it's hey, Dave. What's even worse is PG just released the video.
Yeah. Don't worry though. I went and changed the title, and then I went in and put in the comments, and I said, "Disclaimer: this video was made before Sammy Brown committed." So,
I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, and then I just sit there and I'm like, "Well, what are you gonna do?
Screw it. Screw it.
It's football."
Point.
No, that's football. That's the beauty of it, man. Because the Clemson fans will go over to your channel. You'll have a lot of Clemson fans come over and be like, oh, this is good win for Clemson, and you just boom.
They did that with the Drew Woodaz commitment, because remember I had Drew Woodaz on for an interview, and not even like a week later, this dude commits to Clemson, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So maybe I got to stop talking about linebackers that are in contention with Clemson and Oklahoma, so that they don't end up at Clemson.
Yeah, maybe that's the issue here. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just
no.
It's
to answer Dave's point. He won't be taking another visit. Dabo has the same policy as Venables: no visits after you commit. So if he takes a visit, that means he's probably not going to Clemson at that point. So no OV at this point, I would assume, for Georgia, Oklahoma, or Ohio State. But
we almost made the same mistake starting the show, and PG looked at Twitter right before we started and saw it. But like literally, we were about to hit, and he's like, "Oh, Sammy Brown just committed to Clemson," and I was like, "Well,
literally." And people like just don't like, if you don't understand, we literally were talking about Sammy Brown. Like we were literally talking about, like I hear he's trending to Clemson. Like I hear he silent committed. We'll have to see if these visits take place.
Yeah, that's about where we were in the conversation, and then boom, you're like, oh, he committed.
So
that was like, wild.
Oh, okay, all right. But anyways, back to the visitor list. So yeah, anyways, Oklahoma had a bunch of great wide receivers on there, a bunch of 2025 guys, 2026 guys, a bunch of quarterbacks. Unfortunately, none of these guys have names on the back of their shirts. They're all numbers, and there's no roster for these kids. So you kind of got to go around and talk to everybody and figure out, okay, who's this kid? Who's that? Kind of write them down and then come back later and fill in your notes. So we definitely, next time I go, which is going to be on the 8th, we'll have a better game plan for figuring out who a lot of these guys are. But Oklahoma had, I think the highest number shirt I saw was 457. So I don't know if that means they had 457 kids there between Friday and Saturday. But yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend. It was a great weekend. Definitely an opportunity to kind of see who some of these up and rising quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers might be, because you get to see all of them in action. And it's, Oklahoma definitely threw out a lot of offers. There was that tight end. His name is Cooper, or I have him on my list somewhere. Chase Lofton. He was offered at the camp. I think he's like 6'5" or so. Dude was straight burning people. I mean, straight burning people at 6'5". So Oklahoma was his first offer. Don't expect that recruitment to last long. And I expect the same for a couple others.
Yeah, always great when you find those guys. And this is why I'd always talk in these lives. There's so many different things about the way Clemson recruited, about the way some of these colleges recruit, where camps, you can get offered. But some of these colleges, they want you to come camp so that they can come see you live in their environment, not a neutral environment, in their environment. Their coaches will work with you. You will find some incredible players And like PG said, coaching staffs can get in the ground floor of some of these prospects because they just haven't had the opportunity to be known yet. It's really interesting, these camp settings. Now, Anthony asked the questions, PG, by chance, do you know if the number one quarterback in the 2025 class, George McIntyre, was on campus at Oklahoma this weekend during this camp?
So I actually know who you guys are talking about. I did not see him, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't there on like a day that I wasn't there. So I was only there Saturday, and I believe the camp went on Thursday and Friday. So he could have been there one of those 2 days. I didn't see anything on his social media about it, so that would make me think he wasn't there. But you never rule anything out. But I will say this about camping, because I know some people might be asking themselves the question, why is this so important? Sammy Brown had been going to a Clemson camp since he was in elementary school. And look at where he committed to. So camps are important.
It's one thing, man, for a coach to talk to you, to talk to your family, to text you. Some of these guys have, in camp settings, gotten to work with some of these coaches. PG, you saw it, where OU coaches are out there working.
Yeah, literally, Kevin Sperry, Jeff Lebby. I mean, I have pictures and videos of it. Jeff Lebby's right there. Literally, at one point, I'm sitting by Kevin's parents. He calls his dad over and starts talking to his dad about Kevin Sperry and Roz and things they need to fix. And it's like, oh, so they're really investing into these kids that they really want, talking to the parents, because they're going to have to go home and they have to work on these things. So they kind of explain to the parents, this is what they should be doing. Here's how they fix it. And it's like, so that the way the parents can go back at home and fix it with the kids. It's a very interesting environment. You can definitely tell who the staff really likes and kind of just, hey, you're here to potentially just get seen and get developed. But it's a great opportunity for these kids, especially for the ones that are in like 26 and 27, to really put their name out there with 247 rivals, because I saw both 247 and rivals there. I didn't see anybody on 3.
Very true.
So it gets them an opportunity to put their names out there. Sports Illustrated was there. So
yeah, the names and it's not just about the coaches.
Yeah.
And look, there's a double-edged side to recruiting, where, don't get me wrong, there are people, they can find you, but there are always guys that slip through the cracks in recruiting. Guys that have got incredible ability, but maybe they're rated as a 3-star because maybe they didn't have the means to go camp, and maybe they play at a small high school, right? Like I can tell you there are countless countless examples of that exact situation. But that being said, boom, truth. A great example, like Nayor. Denzel was another great example from Gainesville. It wasn't until his senior year in high school that people started taking notice. Now, tell me this. You think that Denzel just balled 1 year, then went to TCU under Gary Patterson and then balled like that? No, he was a dude all 4 years in high school. I mean, started as a freshman on varsity, which, granted, if you're playing D1, yeah, you're probably going to be. Point being, he was a dude. He just didn't have coaches putting out his film like that. Senior year, they got a different coach at Gainesville High School, a coach that actually put his nose to the ground, started grinding on the recruiting trail. They sent dudes to college. Denzel was one of them. 3-star prospect. Really the only big offers. Boom. We can go through lists of examples like this, but these camps try and help to get those numbers down, right? It's never going to be an exact science, but it does provide other opportunities to foster these relationships, to do all of that. Go ahead.
Well, it makes it a little bit easier too, because if these kids end up getting an offer from Oklahoma, makes the offer committable. So
Boom.
they can get it done early and know that offer that they're going to get is. Now, I'm sure, like, let's say you went to a camp this year and you get the offer next year. I'm sure they're going to want you to come back and camp with them again. But it definitely makes it a little bit easier to know, hey, is my offer committable or not? And I think a lot of people don't understand that. So just because you get an offer from an Alabama or an Oklahoma or a Clemson or Georgia does not mean you can commit to that school on that offer. Sometimes that offer comes with contingencies. Hey, we haven't seen you yet in person, so we need you to come to a 7v7, or we need you to come to a camp so that we can actually evaluate you in person. And that's what makes that offer committable.
I don't know the ins and outs, like whether you would have to recamp. I know at Alabama, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know at Oklahoma either. That's actually really interesting. But let's take a step back, because it wasn't just the camp excitement for you this weekend. Oklahoma got 2 additions out the transfer portal. Talk to me about those briefly, because I think there's this inclination for fans of all teams. Whenever you get someone out the transfer portal, everybody starts looking at the stats, what they do. And look, I'm not saying that you're totally wrong in doing so. It's great to see what that player did at their previous place. No doubt there. But the question also must be asked, why is this team after said player? In Oklahoma's case, they desperately need interior defensive line depth, specifically those big nasties. 2 additions they got this week, both over 300 pounds, can help anchor that defensive line. I said it, PG, before, and then I'm going to pass it to you. If you're looking for them to give you Aaron Donald type numbers, you might be looking at this the wrong way, because I don't know that they'll give you that. But what they will allow is more flexibility, in theory, if they pan out, of Brent Venables' scheme. Basically, they can plug the holes, in theory, and allow the linebackers to run free and make the plays. Talk to me about the 2 additions.
Well, and if anybody has concerns about whether these guys can play or not, just want you to know they haven't even been to a practice yet, and Venables was putting them on the field to help the coaches out with the camp. So if they can produce and they're good enough, they're obviously good enough for Venables to put on the coach to help the kids with the camp. So just put that out there. But no, I mean, to your point, Oklahoma's getting a 325-pound defensive lineman in Dejon Terry, and then they're getting another 300-pound lineman in Paye, which I think I said that right. I think it's Paye. Paye doesn't have as much in terms of the statistics from Utah State and his little time at Michigan, and I believe he's only got 1 year left. I've heard some people say he's got 2, so not
I've heard
quite
1
sure.
and 2, but
yeah, I'm
if
not
he
sure
has
where that
2, I'd
falls.
be
Yeah. But I mean, if you're the Sooners, it's like, I want fans to understand you lost some pretty big pieces in the interior this year. You lost Jeffrey Johnson. You lost, my mind's totally blanking on it. He went Jalen Redmond. And so you have to be able to fill those gaps. And unfortunately, as much as I think a lot of us would agree that moving Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes to the inside, as much as we would all agree with that, that's probably not going to be the answer for this year. That's probably going to be a senior year type of deal for Ethan Downs, because I don't think they're going to be able to put on the weight you would want them to be at. Having 2 300-pound guys that you can just easily plug into that interior defensive line with Isaiah Coe or an Ashton Sanders, that's huge. I think people are overlooking that. And Dejon Terry, which I get it, I don't understand why people want their defensive linemen to have like over 100 tackles. Like, that's not what they do. They cover up the holes, and your linebackers come in and kind of clean up the seconds, or and they're getting the credit for the tackles. Dejon Terry, though, gets to the backfield, 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. In really 3 seasons of playing football. I mean, I know he played 4, but one of them he only played 2 games. So I look at it and go, Dejon Terry, like, that's a guy that actually has significant production at Tennessee in an SEC program where they had to play the Georgias and the Alabamas and all of those schools.
They didn't play Alabama this past year.
Oh, did they not play Alabama?
No, they didn't play Alabama this past year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. They didn't play Alabama this year.
Yeah. It was the first year in a long time the Tennessee-Alabama game didn't get played. Real bummer. We'll look forward to it again next year.
But no, I mean, Terry gets into the backfield, right? And he creates drama, and I think that's what you want. But the other thing is you're just getting experience. You're getting guys that are going to be able to go in there and push Stripling and Gilliam and all of these guys to make them better. So even if they don't start they're at least pushing somebody to be better so they don't lose their job, which, by the way, Derek LeBlanc, a true freshman, is going to potentially vie for a starting spot as well. So,
He's
some of
so
these guys
good.
that have been there for a while, they're not going to want these new guys to come in and take their spots. They're just not going to want that to happen. So you're going to have an opportunity to create some more healthy competition in those locker rooms. You're getting experience. You're getting big bodies. So now when Venables wants to roll out a 3-man front, you're going to have some pretty much
It
300
looks
bodies
different.
across the board to do that. So
Yeah, that 3-man front, all of a sudden, you're not worried about it being rolled over. And Jance makes a great point. He says Terry's a 1-tech 3 hybrid, which gives him a little bit of versatility, which is the name of the game for Brent Venables. Look, this addresses needs, right? I get it. And it's always great when you look and at the end of the year, you have Aaron Donald type production.
but you're not
Nobody
going to get that
argues
from
with that.
everybody.
But we have to also realize those guys, they're few and far between.
Yeah.
The guys that do that, they're first rounders. I mean, like that. And then you have to ask what is necessary. And for Oklahoma right now, they need interior defensive linemen. And it makes complete sense. Look, this is one thing I like, right? And this is something I talked about. There's action versus inaction. And I think that we talked about this when we talked about the Pac-12 media rights conundrum right now relative to the Big 12. And my whole point is it can go right here to this. If you have a need, which Oklahoma did, the interior of the defensive lineman, I would much rather a team be proactive and get active because Brent Venables understands I can't get anybody in recruiting today that's going to help me tomorrow. I have to wait a year for them to get here next January, best case scenario, a year before they get here. But you know what I can do?
A Bear Alexander hits the portal, they're more than likely already know where they're going because of NIL.
Very true. Whenever guys like that hit the portal, they probably have an indication. Eddie, you're right. USC is killing it today. That's what we are going to end the show on because my goodness, not even just today, my brother. I mean, this whole weekend was big for the Trojans. Super intrigued about several aspects there, including a coach for USC who we're going to break down tonight. It's just a good period. Yeah, he's a beast. He's a beast. But yeah, it's one of those things, man. I would much rather a coach who has a need not sit on their hands. Be active. Don't be passive because guess what? Texas isn't going to be passive. Baylor's not going to be passive. None of the teams in the Big 12 are going to be passive. So I'm super happy when I look at Oklahoma and they have a need and Brent Venables is being active. Let's do everything we can to address this need. We have to. Because recruiting is how we're ultimately going to solve this. I can't do anything recruiting today that will help me tomorrow. It will help me in January. Hey, we got a full season to be played, boys. And Oklahoma recruited very well with the season they had, but if they get those wins on the field, that will help their wins in recruiting. So something to think about. I agree with you, PG. Based on need, I like what Brent Venables is doing in the transfer portal. I just like action. I don't like a whole lot of hand sitting, which is why the Pac-12 media rights negotiation has just drove me insane. I think they're going to end up on the Oprah network at this point. But this is where we're...
Before we move on, by the way, I just want everybody to understand how important these camps were. A 4-star running back for that attended the camp, Michael Turner Jr. in 2025, just earned an offer.
For Oklahoma?
Yep, for Oklahoma.
Boom.
Why those camps are important. Throwing our early offers out.
Great comment by Eric right here. He says, my brother was invited to Oklahoma camp about 12 years ago, but I didn't understand that the camp could have earned him a spot on the team. Yeah, they're big.
Yeah.
They're big. Truth, that is a brilliant question. That's the question. No. Hey, we're on the same page, man, because that's the question. That's something that I'll go down the rabbit hole on, and I don't necessarily want to do that today. I think we'll save that for Thursday. Today, I did want to talk about some recruiting for USC. Because right before we got on, and right after I made a video, PG, isn't this always how it goes? I make a video talking about USC recruiting. First, let me paint you the entire picture because you're going to get a kick out of this. And now that we've kind of laid down the backstory of you making the Sammy Brown video, only for about 30 minutes later, him to commit to Clemson, the people will appreciate this. Earlier today, I get done recording the 3 videos I did. I had just gotten done recording the USC one. And after I get done recording, and it's just almost second nature, I hit Twitter just to be like, okay, is there any other news that has broke? Anything that will jog my mind and be like, I want to talk about this before I start editing. Right then and there, Dakota Fields had committed to USC. And I was like, well, scrap the video I just made, had to go back, record, got that video out, published it. And about 5-10 minutes after it was out, they get the edge commitment out of Georgia. And I was just like, come on, Lincoln. Yeah, come on, Lincoln. Throw me a bone, man. But look, USC this weekend had a lot of big-time prospects on campus. We talked in the video earlier about a running back that OU and USC will be battling it out for, along with Michigan and several other prospects. Taylor Tatum, very, very talented. But they get an offensive lineman, 3-star offensive tackle from Colorado. Look, they need to work on the offensive line. They got wins there last year. Super intrigued to see what Coach Henson is able to do on the offensive line there this year. He was the guy that really put together a surprisingly solid offensive line for A&M a few years back. Truth, you'll remember this. Several other people will. PG, you will. There was a few years ago, the A&M offensive line was young, real young. And a lot of people were worried about what they were going to be. They ended up being much better than a lot of people anticipated, and Josh Henson had a lot to do with that. Whenever we now look, he gets the 3-star offensive tackle. I'm interested to see whether or not they can keep Brandon Baker home. He's been talking to Miami. He's been talking to several places. But if we look at Henson's recruiting with USC, they've gotten a lot of California and PAC area offensive tackles. Super interested to see if they can keep Brandon Baker home.
I think that recruitment's probably going to go into January.
I agree.
Yeah, that's going to be that. If there's any recruitment that's going to be an NIL recruitment, that's going to be one of them.
Yeah, and
offensive linemen, especially that good, it's not that they go in demanding the money, but the schools are going to start throwing money at this kid, and then it's just going to become a bidding war at that point.
Yes, and
it's not going to be his fault. He's not going to be the one walking in there demanding that money. I mean, you're just going to have Oregon and USC and Miami and A&M and all these places just start hauling it in.
Yeah, so they get the 3-star Hayden Schroeder this weekend, okay? Today. Lo and behold. Well, actually, it wasn't just Hayden Schroeder. They get Hayden Schroeder this weekend. They then get Manasa, I'm going to butcher this, Itiete. I am so sorry if I butchered it.
I think that's right.
They got him today, just outside the top 300 in offensive line. Stands 6'5", 290 pounds. That's big. We talk about their needed offensive line. The interesting thing to me, PG, is they then double down, and the 2 top prospects in USC's 2024 recruiting class right now, thus far, both on the defensive side of the ball. Dakota Fields, top 100 prospect in the nation, number 78, number 10 at his position, number 10 in the state. And then Cameron Fountain from Georgia, 6'5", 237, number 81 in the nation, the number 7 edge, number 11 in the state of Georgia. What did we just talk about when we were talking about Georgia?
Building in the trenches.
Not only that, but teams being able to go into the state of Georgia and take top prospects out. Sammy Brown to Clemson. We talk about last year. Caleb Downs to Alabama. Now we have the edge, Cameron Fountain, a top 20 prospect in their class, or in their state at USC. Yeah, I know. This is interesting, man. First off, I did want to talk about this because earlier I talked about how whenever Eddie said USC was killing it in recruiting today, I said we were going to highlight a coach. That's Coach Williams. Coach Williams for USC, Dante Williams. I said it whenever Lincoln Riley was hired to USC, whenever he retained Coach Williams, that at the time was the best move he had made as the head coach of USC. Fast forward a year, I feel the same way in terms of coaching hires. I feel the same way. PG, I'm going to walk you through the list of prospects he has been involved with in terms of recruiting. Corey Foreman, number 2 prospect in the nation, his respective class.
Pretty good.
Zachariah Branch, top 5 prospect in his respective class.
He's okay.
Justin Flo, whenever Justin Flo is coming out. Now, that one's unfortunate. Injuries have sidelined Justin Flo, but let's not all sit here and act like we didn't watch that Justin Flo highlight tape about 10 times when he was coming out of high school, when he was just dunking kids. All right? We're all guilty of that one.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Most of all me. Damani Jackson, number 5 in his class.
That dude's a scrub.
That dude is so fast, man. Anquan Fegans, 6'1", 180 pounds, brother of Traquan Fegans, who was at Alabama, transferred from Alabama to USC. So look, even though the Traquan Fegans isn't going to show up in this, know that Traquan Fegans was a blue chip prospect coming out of high school. 4-star, very highly touted. That absolutely goes with Coach Williams. He got Traquan Fegans out the transfer portal, and along with it, his 5-star younger brother, Anquan Fegans, who ranks as the number 25 prospect in the class of 2025. On top of that, Dante Manning, who is a 5-star cornerback who went to Oregon. Sure, Eric, but Coach, we're talking about the recruits Coach Williams has recruited. He was at Oregon for a time. This dude is a ace recruiter, man. Ace recruiter. Michael White, top 50 prospect in the nation. Tyjon Lindsey, top 50 prospect in the nation. Zion Branch, top 60 prospect in the nation. Rayshawn Davis, top 50 prospect in the nation. Sierra Wright, top 100 prospect in the nation. Dakota Fields, top 100 prospect in the nation. Brian Addison, top 100 prospect in the nation. Julian Simon, top 150 prospect in the nation. Kyron Ware Hudson, top 150 prospect in the nation. Need I continue? I can keep going and going and going. This guy has a laundry list of 5 stars, blue chip 4 stars. This dude, truth. Hey, I'm not going to do it because it'll get repetitive, and I don't think a lot of people want to see it, but I know you would. Go on the 24/7 Sports page. Go on Dakota Fields' profile on 24/7 Sports under the lead recruiters for USC. Click Dante Williams, go to his prospects that he's landed, and click show more. You'll get a kick out of this. I'm not going to do it just because we'd be here for a long time, but I'm still scrolling, and I just got to the first 3-star. This dude is a great recruiter, and he's young, age 40.
I'll be curious to see if they can recruit at this high of a level once they hit the Big Ten, because I think if they would have stayed in the Pac-12, USC could have recruited on defense a whole lot better than they will when they go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, I think
because I think performance-wise, they'll look better in the Pac-12 than when they will when they go to the Big Ten.
See, the thing to me though is that this is going to be a what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's a crossroads. Yes, that's the phrase I'm. They're going to have to make a distinction in how they play football once they go to the Big Ten. There are certain aspects of the Lincoln Riley offense that will work just because it's a little bit different than what they've seen. Ryan Day does something similar, but at the same time, there are some differences that will provide a spark to the Big Ten. Likewise, the Big Ten will force USC to adjust, and we'll get this amalgamation of USC becoming the team they need to be in the Big Ten, or at least that's what you want to have happen. Right, that's the best case scenario. I always liken it back to whenever A&M and Missouri came into the SEC, and they kind of came in and punched some teams in the mouth and really surprised some people. But in the long run, those two teams move from the Big 12 to the SEC was very good for the SEC because it forced the SEC to evolve a little bit. These two teams came in here with the style of offense that now you couldn't ignore. You couldn't say, well, it's just a one-off. They were there. They had to evolve.
Missouri was in the conference championships game.
Boom. Year one.
Missouri in the SEC.
Yes. So they had to evolve. that was better for the SEC. The SEC offenses, now granted, college football was evolving at that time as well. So it's kind of this amalgamation of all of these different factors, right? Both the two teams joining the SEC forced an evolution, the state of college football as it was, going from a more run-heavy, defensive-centric style to a more wide-open spread style. All these things forced an evolution, but make no mistake, USC is going to evolve whenever they get to the Big Ten. They have to, because they have some things that are recipes to success, but the Big Ten also has some things that have been recipes for success for them, and you're going to have this amalgamation and a merging of styles, and that is what I'm excited for. I'm very excited for that move. Really worried about the Pac-12, though. I have no idea what they're going to do.
Oh, and Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah to the Big 12, baby.
Yeah, I don't know what in the world the future of the Pac-12 is. God help them, because after USC and UCLA are out, you've lost two major markets. This is what I meant earlier, and this is what we'll end it on, PG. Action versus inaction. This isn't just football talk. This is general talk. The Big 12 lost two of the biggest brands in college football. Texas and Oklahoma, two of the most profitable, biggest brands in college football, gone from their conference. They didn't sit on their hands. They knew, look, we're not going to be able to mitigate that loss 100%. But what if we get these teams in so we can keep intrigue? The Pac-12 hasn't done that. Losing USC is big, really big. I get it. They have Oregon. They have Washington. They still have teams that I'm going to watch, that you're going to watch, that the people in this stream are going to watch. But guys, we're the 1% of college football fans. You are here on June 5th on a Monday evening at 6 o'clock listening to random college football recruiting news. You are the 1% of college football fans. What you are interested in watching...
because OU softball's not playing tonight.
That's all. Okay, well, I rise on the totem of importance when that... True. But we all here, all of us here are not indicative of a casual college football fan. So for us to say like, oh, well, we'll still watch the Pac. Yeah, because we're all fanatical in our own way. Whether we're fanatical about our team or college football as a whole, we're like the 1% of fans, right? That's the reason why you're here talking college football on a Monday evening in June, when there's no college football news aside from recruiting to be had. So yeah, it's super interesting, Truth. Welcome back, Colorado. That'd be great. Better hope he go to Cowboys. If not, game over. Carter, you're talking about Lincoln leaving for the NFL. That'd be interesting.
I think it happens.
See that? Yeah, that'd be interesting.
But I think it depends on where Caleb Williams goes, though. Like, if Caleb Williams ends up at like Buffalo, I don't think Lincoln Riley's going to Buffalo. Now, I know Jance is in the chat, so we're not gonna like give his hopes up over here.
What's wrong with Buffalo?
It's cold. Who wants to go to Buffalo?
Oh, don't be like that. Don't be like that. There are heaters. There's wood. You can make a fire.
Oh boy. No, in all seriousness, like if Caleb Williams did end up at a Dallas situation, like, yeah, no doubt in my mind, Lincoln Riley would jump on that situation, but he's not going to end up in Dallas. It's more likely probably going to be in Arizona or a place like that. Maybe even the Rams.
Oh, that'd be a fun one.
Then he doesn't have to move. He can stay where he's at and he can just jump on over to LA for the Rams.
Well, Carter, maybe someone is, I think we've all admitted as such.
No, I don't think it'll help USC out with recruiting if USC can't fix their defensive problems. It's going to be the same thing Oklahoma has, right? If Oklahoma can't show that they can develop and make significant improvements along the defense, they're going to continue to have the same problems. They're not going to be able to get the defensive linemen they want. USC is going to have to show significant improvement and development on the defensive side of the ball to be able to go out there and land top-tier recruits year in and year out. I mean, yeah, they've kind of been doing it, but I'm talking about, 4 or 5 guys in the top 100, 2 or 3 5-stars. Like that's kind of what you want to be landing to be a national championship team. And for USC to get there, they're going to have to go out there and show some significant improvements on the defensive side of the ball, which Lincoln Riley has yet to show that he can do. He can get talent. He just can't develop that talent. And I think that's what a lot of coaches are going to use over Lincoln Riley. It's going to be like, hey, look at Jalen Redmond. Look at Isaiah Thomas or this person. Like,
I'm interested if the defense does not see progression this year, and we talked about this about a week ago, what move they make. Because I don't think if the defense doesn't improve, you take Alex Grinch
half
to
the season,
Big Ten.
through half the season, if their defense is not improved with what they got, Alex Grinch should be fired.
Well, okay, let me find this.
It's the Pac-12 for crying out loud. Like that defense that the USC has with everything they got through the transfer portal this year should be able to win them games. Like their defense should be able to win them games.
Don't get me wrong, Eddie. No doubt that Lincoln Riley's offense is going to add a spark to the Big Ten. That's certainly not in contention. But we also must remember, man, Brian Hartline and that Ohio State offense, that's a very high-powered offense as well, full of stars.
What's USC going to do when they have to play Michigan and they don't have a defensive line to stop a Blake Corum type of guy?
Well, here's my thing, right? This is the point that I think is so interesting, because the last time Alex Grinch was in the Big Ten, it did not go well. Whenever he inherited that Ohio State defense, they were a top 15 unit in all of college football. Greg Schiano is the play caller for the Ohio State defense. They bring in Alex Grinch to be co-defensive coordinator with Greg Schiano. At the time he takes that position, like I said, top 15. They dropped from a top 15 defense to the number 52 overall defense in the nation when they hired Alex Grinch. What's worse is what happened right after they got rid of Alex Grinch. They went to a top 10 defense. So, look, I'm not saying he can't improve. My point is this. If that defense does not improve going into the Big Ten, I don't know that that's conducive to success, because if your defense is showing like, hey, we're still not where we want to be, that wasn't a defense that was shown to be able to really stop the run-heavy aspects of the Big Ten, as we saw. Granted, it was only a one-year sample size, but the reason, and typically I stay away from one-year sample sizes, but the reason why I do think this is a one-year sample size we can discuss is because we saw a clear drop-off from a top 20 defense to a defense ranked outside the top 50 to then when they change defensive coordinators, right back in as a top 10 defense. That's where I'm watching USC. I have no questions their offense is going to be as dangerous as anything in college football. What's the defense going to do? That's the question. Pack this year. Just USC will keep players. Well, look, don't get me wrong. I do agree very much well with Carter here when he says that the addition of USC to the Big Ten will help USC's recruiting, because the Big Ten is a bigger brand than is the Pac-12, at least to a lot of these prospects.
Maybe because they're going to have to start going up against Larry Johnson. I mean
they're already going up against Larry Johnson.
Yeah, but I mean, they're going to have to go up against him even more. And it's
true.
Not a lot of people win over Larry Johnson.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that's a good point. Point being, though, is they'll have the Big Ten logo on them. Right? It's just like this. Do you think that Oklahoma recruiting is going to be benefited by going to the SEC? You now have to win against.
The SEC is different. I think the SEC is a much different brand than the Big Ten. Like when you talk about a player and you talk about what conference would you want to go play for, I never hear Big Ten, never hear Big 12. It's always SEC, SEC, SEC. Literally talked to a kid about it at the camp today. He's like, I'm only here because I want to get an offer from Oklahoma, and they're going to the SEC, and the SEC is the best conference. They make the most money, and they have the best talent, and they put the most guys in the NFL.
Big Ten is catching, or the Big Ten is putting a lot of guys. I don't know about catching, but I know that the Big Ten puts a lot of guys into the NFL.
Yeah, but
it's a farm.
Big Ten now take a drop off now that OU and Texas are heading into the SEC, because now OU and Texas are going to be able to wave that SEC flag and land a lot of those guys that they maybe had been missing.
True. True. Look, this is
I don't think USC is going to have a lot of success in the Big Ten if they can't fix their defensive line problems, which is they don't want to have any 300-pound guys out there, because Michigan will take advantage of you and run all over you all day long, and that is the same thing every other Big Ten team does. They will run the ball like nobody's business.
Yeah, don't get me wrong though. I still have to push back, man. I know that the SEC is the premier brand in college football, whether we want to admit that or not. That's the reality of the situation. But that being said, I do think that logo of the Big Ten carries weight. For me personally, when I hear these prospects, it's largely either SEC or Big Ten, where they really want to go play their college football. So I do think that'll help USC. I certainly think that will help. And I also think that we'll put them in positions that will make them rise, which I also think is good. Just like whenever I've talked about this with Texas and Oklahoma going from the Big 12 to you have no choice but to raise your level of recruiting. Because even though Texas and Oklahoma have always recruited well, now as Bo Davis, I'm going to see Freddie Roach multiple times this year. Right? Like they know this. I'm going to see Todd Bates. I'm going to see all these dudes. So that's going to be really interesting. Test SC defense this year. No doubt the Pac will test their defense, and the Pac had 6 ranked teams last year. No doubt about it. The Pac was good last year, but there's still this commonality, Carter. Where do the best minds in college football go to get the talent? Where do the best minds in football go?
I'll just put this out there. The Big 12 has had teams ranked in the top 25 a lot, and then they go out and play SEC teams and get smoked.
Oh, but Carter, I think you're kind of arguing a separate point here, my man. Nobody's saying that the Pac won't test the SC's defense. That's never been a point of contention. My point is I can look at the stats and see exactly what type of defense Grinch's scheme does not work. I can look at the stats and tell you what type of offensive scheme Grinch's scheme doesn't work against. And it's not the Pac-12 scheme. If anything, that's more conducive for success for Alex Grinch, because historically speaking, he had success at Washington State. The only place Grinch has ever had success defensively to that level was in the Pac. That's the only place he's ever had a top 20 defense. Like I said, whenever he got to Ohio State, once again, Carter, I agree. The quarterback play in the Pac is phenomenal. I love Michael Penix Jr. That was a guy I kept talking about last year. But stylistically speaking, schematically speaking, the Grinch defense really has been hurt by that style of offense. Well, no, I think Carter's a USC fan. Link is our head coach, not Grinch. We could, no doubt, but that's why I'm so interested in what this is going to be. There's a verbal promise to Leonard. Yeah, Leonard would have been a great hire. My God, that'd have been huge. Jeez.
He'll get a head coaching job somewhere.
I was surprised he didn't. Obviously, he probably wants to take some time.
He's having hip surgery this year.
That's okay. Yeah, there we go.
The entire year, so
there we go.
He's taking the year off, which honestly, that's a better deal, because there might not have been any attracting jobs to him this year. I mean,
true.
What if a USC does lose Lincoln Riley, but going into the Big Ten? Maybe all of a sudden Jim Leonard could go take over the USC job.
That'd be interesting.
Would be.
But that's about it for this evening. My fiance is cooking dinner, and I'm hungry.
I'm going to go for a walk tonight. So
there you go. There you go. Before you get out of here, PG, where is it that the people can find all of your great content?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, The PG Show, Apple, Google, or Spotify. And then you guys can find me on Twitter at The PG Show _. You guys will definitely want to be pulling up, because we're going to be going to camps on the 8th and the 13th. Now that I know what I need to be looking for when I go to camps, we're definitely going to have a lot more content around those camps.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And Qwerty, I agree. We've talked about this. We've talked about this on the channel before. The Pac is a lot better than a lot of people think, in terms of there's a lot more solid teams in the Pac than a lot of people give them credit for. But it's going to be a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun conversations to be had. We will pick up on these conversations Thursday, 5:30 Central Standard Time. I'm going to try and get some more people in here. That stream, guys, plot down for that one to be a little bit of a longer stream, because I'm not going to be streaming on Friday. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a longer weekend. So we'll probably go for 2 hours on Thursday. I'll keep you updated there. Until then, we'll see you. That's it. Spinning wheel.